So let's go to our first panel. I'm quite excited about this because it's about local production. The local production panel will be looking at the sustainable supply chain practices among indigenous producers. Now, in an era where global commerce intersects with environmental responsibility, the conversation that we're about to have delves into the pivotal role of indigenous producers in fostering sustainable supply chains. As we explore the intricate dynamics of sourcing, production, and distribution, our esteemed panelists, each a trailblazer in their respective fields, will shed light on these innovative strategies, ethical considerations, and the socio-economic impact of sustainable practices. Join us, whether in person and online, as we unravel the stories, the challenges, and the triumphs of these producers who are committed to forging a path that harmonizes economic prosperity with environmental stewardship, paving the way for a more sustainable and equitable future. Now, I would like to welcome to the stage for our first panel session, starting with Mr. Buffy Okeke-Ojiudu. He's the CEO of the Zebra Group and leads an organization with interest in agro-processing and media. He founded Zebra-Agro-Industries, focusing on agro-technology and processing with a mission to create jobs, boost local economies, and increase smallholder farmers' incomes. In 2020, he founded E.A.T, a platform for agro-entrepreneurs and policymakers to share ideas. Buffy, not Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but Buffy is also the publisher of Abuja Times newspaper and chairs the Ojiudu Foundation, a philanthropic organization supporting underprivileged youth in West Africa. Recognized on the True Africa 100 list, he's a TED speaker and a frequent public speaker, offering advice to government authorities. He's a public speaker, so I'm sure he would have no problem fitting in on stage. Please put your hands together for the CEO of Zebra Group Limited, Buffy Okeke-Ojiudu. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time. Please, yes, please. Thank you. Put your hands together for him as he sits down. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we're moving on to our next panelist. Mr. Aminu Nyako. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Please I like to make sure I pronounce names right, so please just shout it out. Yes? Okay. Aminu Nyako. He is the managing director of the Sebore Group. He's the managing director of Sebore International Farms Limited, excuse me. He's an economist and public policy expert, renowned for his innovation in projects He's an economist and public policy expert renowned for his innovation in large-scale projects and global business strategy in emerging markets. Being a passionately patriotic citizen, he also served as chief of staff to the senator representing Adamawa Central Senatorial District in the National Assembly of Nigeria. And as a thought leader, he excels in managing diverse teams, closing deals, and driving growth in complex environments. In 2020, Aminu pioneered the Sebore Agro-Industrial Free Trade Zone and initiated the integration of 500 smallholder dairy farmers into the Sebore Dairy Factory. This program has grown to encompass over 18,000 farmers and is still growing today. even more so with the meritorious support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Please put your hands together for Mr. Aminu Nyako, the Managing Director of the Sebore Group. I'm going to have to look for you to tell me how you were able to get some funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation later. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, like I said, we have some trailblazers on this panel, and I'm so excited to introduce the next person. He goes by the name Obi Ezemwa. Obi serves on the board of multiple organizations such as the Pine Trading Europe Limited, Sky Nigeria Limited, a leading building products supplier and service provider with projects ranging from Microsoft, Facebook, Dangote Refinery, MTN, and more. Talk about a bio. Now, Whitestones Hotels and Resorts Limited, Smart Brands, Limited Afro Beverages and Distillers Limited, Midland Life Sciences, which is a UK-based life sciences startup, among others. Now, that's just to mention a few, okay? So, I told you, trailblazers. He's renowned for driving innovation and growth in various sectors across Africa and Europe. He has expertise in startups, medium-sized companies, large enterprises, and the London Stock Exchange AIM-listed businesses. He boasts of over a decade of experience in generating new concepts, building strategic partnerships, securing funding, and executing complex projects. And he's also a keen supporter of the Nigerian charity, The Roses, which helps vulnerable women, especially widows and their children, to get out of poverty. Now, that's a man after my own heart. Any man that just does anything for women like this, that's it. He's already a man after my own heart. Now, let's put our hands together for Mr. Obi Ezemwa, the director at Pine. Please put your hands together for him as he makes his way to the stage. We appreciate you being here. Now, the next panelist, the last but definitely not the least, is Mr. Obinna Anyaibu. He's a multifaceted professional. He excels in business development, asset management, and supply chain expertise. With a rich experience of serving 55+ businesses, he currently heads a team of business development professionals overseeing the establishment and operation of a 24-hour command center that provides real-time monitoring of fleets, passengers, and cargo. Obinna is currently working on a project with the Federal Road Safety to establish one of the most equipped commercial vehicles for driving schools in West Africa. He has also spearheaded and finalized a deal with Dutch counterparts to assemble, market, and sell DAF trucks and buses in Nigeria. If you could please put your hands together for Mr. Obinna Anyaibu, who is the CEO of Chisco Express Limited. Please put your hands together as he makes his way to the stage. Okay. Now we have our, I'm so sorry, I apologize for this. I'd actually said that was our last panelist, but there's one more person who is here, and definitely not the least. He's going to be coming on stage. I'm talking about Mr. Rabiu Umar. He's not here, but he's going to be joining us on stage virtually, because that's how we do it over here at the Mentor Challenge 5.0. Talking technology, you don't have to be in here to impart wisdom nuggets onto us here. So joining us virtually is Mr. Rabiu Umar, who is currently the Group Sales and Marketing Director at the Dangote Cement Plc, with 20+ years in the downstream petroleum and cement manufacturing sectors, with a focus on transformational leadership. In his past career, he has held different management roles within the marketing business and led the sales and marketing transformation plan successfully at Owando PLC. Later, he joined Lafarge Africa, managing energy, power, and strategy for West Africa, leading projects in Nigeria, in Ghana, and Cameroon. He also held the position of the Chief Executive Officer, MD, and Director at Ashaka Cement Plc. If you could please put your hands together for Mr. Rabiu Umar, who is the Group Sales and Marketing Director at Dangote Plc. He's there on stage. Thank you for joining us virtually. We appreciate your time. So now I'm going to hand over. Okay, all my panelists are getting microphones. Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. I can hold on to my microphone then. Please, I want to remind you, so we have notepads and pens. I know people that like to take notes on their phones as well. Please, these are people that are trailblazers in their industry. You are literally getting this knowledge at the barest minimum, but it is the most that you can get. So please, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Buffy now, who is our moderator, and you can take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the audience for being here this early, and panelists for making it out. Okay, so we'll get into it. The Nigerian logistics and supply chain space, as of 2018, was valued at over $580 million. As of now, it's estimated to be over $10 billion. How true that is, I don't know. But still, there are a lot of challenges in this space. It's also quite fragmented, especially when you look internal, and internal logistics specifically focused on the manufacturing space. So one challenge that people typically talk about is that with anybody operating in manufacturing, or companies operating in manufacturing, agro-processing, extractive industries in general, they struggle to manage supply chain, especially when you consider moving commodities and products from rural provinces to their last mile or mid-mile facilities, and then moving them on from those facilities to urban areas. The last mile part seems to be more difficult, and that's the feedback you get from a lot of companies. What companies then seem to tend to do is either have to build out their own logistics network or work with mom and pop shops, which can then be more difficult to manage. So there's an open question now for everyone on the panel. What challenges have you encountered in managing your supply chain? How have you overcome them? And how's that been over time? I'll start with Aminu, because I follow you on social media, so I see all the work you guys have been doing in agricultural logistics.
Good morning, everyone, and big thank you for the opportunity to be on the panel today. So my name is Aminu Nyako, and as introduced, I'm the MD of Sebore International Farms. It's a dairy farm located in Adamawa State, so on the other side of Nigeria from Lagos. And we currently are probably the largest dairy processor in Nigeria, processing about 150,000 liters of milk on a daily basis. That's our capacity. And we do this by aggregating milk from pastoral farmers in the hinterland, as you can imagine. And what most people don't realize is milk. Most people think the most perishable product in Nigeria is tomato, because that's what has the headlines. But in all honesty, the most perishable product is milk. And milk is perishable in the nature because once you milk a cow, you actually have to cool the milk to 4 degrees within 2 hours. If not, it starts going rancid. So for us, the question of logistics is of critical importance for us. The question of cold logistics, which is even at a more complicated scale than the actual logistics, is of critical importance. And just the system by which you keep the product or agro-commodity, its quality top-notch, is of critical importance. So to date, we have about 18,000 farmers that span from southern Borno, maybe a stone throw from Sambisa, all the way to Adamawa to Taraba State, the Mambila Plateau, and we collect milk from them daily. And we really had to innovate to see how we can establish systems that allow for the milk to come to our factory in its highest and purest form. We process this milk into yogurt, butter, mozzarella cheese. We're the only producers of mozzarella in Nigeria, ghee and ice cream. But what we have leveraged is that we have seen that petrol costs are much more expensive in that part of the country. I think diesel in the Northeast now, I believe, is 1,500 per liter. I don't think any other part of the country experiences this kind of price. So we leveraged renewable energy. The factory is completely renewable. We are producing about 5 megawatts of solar power with 5 megawatts of battery. That has allowed us to have an energy smoothing cost and maintain the integrity of the factory. But not only that, we have about 78 collection centers in the local communities as well that are also powered by solar and batteries. And that has given us, at the first line, at the very communal level, ability to cool the milk at the farmer level. And we then have trucks that go around on a daily basis to collect the milk, aggregate it, and bring it to the farm. What we realized is the old system that Nigeria relied on when we had cheap energy is no longer viable in the new economy the country will be moving into. And as such, I think private sector and maybe other panelists here can shed more light. We actually have to be the trailblazers in the new ideation that we believe can move the country forward. Nigeria is blessed, but we have trapped potential. When I was invited here by Zini, she told me to bring some of my products for the exhibition. For me, it didn't make sense moving my product all the way from Adamawa here, because if I'm also going to be in charge of logistics, that cost to move the product cross-country is a bit too massive. I really do think that moving forward, government and other private people that want to enter the logistics space have to enter it in such a major way. I think the logistics cost in Nigeria is still probably one of the highest globally. It's not for anything, but our forefathers believed that the roads that they should create should go through every major town. And as such, you would snake through the entire Nigeria to get to Lagos. And you're skipping viable customer bases, viable markets. So you find it very difficult moving products within the country as opposed to outside the country. So for us right now, I know the government is looking at CNG, LNG, electric vehicles, but I think we need major highways and rail that can be able to fully unlock the value, especially if you're going into perishables like milk, meat, vegetables, and fruit. But I would move on and I can comment on it later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Aminu. I had a quick question. So when you said you move from the rural areas to collect, is it your own trucking or do you outsource that service?
There's no outsourcing. We do all of it. We do the entire value chain, from feed systems for the rural farmer, cold logistics at the community level, trucking to our farm, processing on the farm, last mile transportation of cold vans to supermarkets and the rest. Most agro-commodities don't require cold logistics. So you would mainly find some private companies that do Lagos, Abuja, and maybe Lagos, Port Harcourt. But they don't go into all the other states that have trap potential.
I can imagine the cost of that. So Obi, I know you guys are in beverage manufacturing and all the way in Aba, so Lord knows what you're going through.
Yeah, thank you, Obina. Yeah, my name is Obi Ezanwan. I wear many hats, but today I'm wearing the Smart Brands Afro Beverages and Distillers Limited hat on. We're a very versatile beverage manufacturing facility in Aba. Several millions of dollars were invested into this facility, and I say versatile because we can produce pretty much any type of beverage and put in any type of packaging, apart from what my dear friend here does, milk. We probably don't produce milk and brewed products, but pretty much every type of non-alcoholic and alcoholic drink you can think about, we can produce. So, I mean, we have, you can see one of our brands, I think, in the gift pack. So I was able to bring mine. It's a Chapman in Cannes. But we also have several other brands. Now, in terms of the question, the challenge, I'm going to echo some of what Aminu has said, actually, and I'll try and summarize the challenges. I think they're largely in two parts. One is the high cost. And I know some of you will always say, yeah, we always say that high cost. But the cost of diesel, the FX situation in terms of maintaining these logistics vehicles has significantly increased the cost of shipping goods, right? And I will say this, actually, when you look at the entire value chain, I'll say this from when we've produced our finished goods to getting it to the final customer, that is actually a nightmare for us. And the second part that I would say has to do with bad roads. And the bad roads has two effects. It increases the journey time of the logistics, and then two, it produces damages. From our own perspective, we're shipping things like cans, glass, etc. Because of these bad roads, you then get to the end customer. By the time the truck gets to the end customer's time, and by the way, you're trying to tell the end customer, oh yeah, it's left, the truck has left this night, it should be with you tomorrow. You can never predict the journey time. It can go 1 week, it can be 2 weeks. I've seen 2 weeks for a journey that should take 1 day, right? Because the truck stopped on the road, they need to change tire, this one, that one, and it gets them. So really, I just want to echo what he's saying. From a challenges perspective, we are now unable to promise our customers certain things. But from a supply inbound logistics perspective for us, we actually don't have that much challenges, mainly because as a beverage manufacturer of our type, 5% of only 5% of what constituents of our products really are imported. The rest are locally sourced, and we try to work with our local manufacturers that produce some of these things, basically to get the product to us on time, etc. I hope that answers your question.
That does. Thank you. Before I go to you, Obi, I'll touch on something that was mentioned. I believe, Aminu, you mentioned that it is up to the private sector to start working to bridge some of these gaps. And I know that in the States, in the 1920s, thereabouts, you had, the robber barons, the people who built a lot of the core systems and structures of America as we know it today, right? So you had the likes of Vanderbilt that built out the rail lines, which conveyed at first energy, oil, et cetera, before Rockefeller built out the pipelines, and Andrew Carnegie, the steel that held all of these together. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out here. Like, are we currently at that time? And this is leading to you, Obi Chisco, because for our operations as well at Zebra, one of the core challenges has always been logistics, outsource or do it internally. Now, there's the headache that comes with building out a national logistics network for your operations. That's a different business altogether. And, we'd always wondered, how come nobody is focused and is building a sector-specific solution or service, for the agriculture space? So, for example, call it Agro-Express. And Agro-Express, if you're a producer, a manufacturer, you could just engage their services, and you know what the costs are. Maybe there's an app even, and it's traceable, it's transparent, it's easy, right? And you would imagine that would exist already, as opposed to working with pretty much drivers and parks. Drivers and parks. And that brings me to you, Obi. For Chisco, most of us know Chisco as a platform that conveys people and then goods, domestic goods. What I've recently found out is that you guys also operate in the manufacturing space. The question then would be, one, is there an opportunity for logistics companies who have tailored services for manufacturers? And how is that working for you guys so far? And what do you do in that? Tying back to the original question of the challenges.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. I also like to thank the MMC management, Ms. Ezine, for inviting me. Very honored to be part of this event and to be in the midst of such a distinguished panelists. My name is Obinna Anyebu, and I'm a director in Chisco Group, also the CEO of Chisco Express, who is focused on infusing technology into supply chain services. That includes warehousing and transport. I know that I'm representing logistics in the midst of all the complaints about logistics from manufacturers today. But it's obviously not just the private sector. They really, if you check the best and most productive economies in the world, you find out that there's a lot of private-public partnership to actually build out infrastructure. And because we have creativity here in this country, we have a lot of bright minds. We can see it all over the world where Nigerians are the best at whatever industries. So we have the ideas. Now, is the government willing to actually invest with the private sector to be able to have a 20-year plan? Because you have to choose whether you're in the infrastructure business or you're in the logistics business or the manufacturing business. But unfortunately, a lot of companies don't have that opportunity to choose. Because of the way we are and where we are in time, I would say that if you want to really grow your product as an SME, you basically have to be in charge of your logistics in the beginning. Because I think it takes time to actually build out the competence to even outsource properly. Because it's a matter of understanding what it means to actually own logistics assets. And you have to own your service. One of our colleagues on this panel who is through technology is here. I always say that the biggest logistics operation today is Dangote, because they are, moving. They probably have about 8,000 trucks. Chisco today is about 40 years, but we have about 1,000 vehicles. So obviously we can't cater for his need for moving all those assets, and we can see that it's not just about what you produce; it's about what you can distribute. So I think that yes, logistics plays a huge role in our productivity, in our sales. I think that there's a dearth of logistics and supply chain knowledge, because it's not just about the CEO, it's about operations managers, it's about the drivers, it's about the mechanics. So there's a full knowledge, a body of knowledge in order for our products and productivity to actually spread out across the country and build more prosperity. That's why conversations like this are good and important for us to learn from ourselves and sort of put it into practice. Maybe maybe some other people have more access to finance. I had some finance access here, which is a big part of making the infrastructure available. Like trucks today are not cheap to own. But if there was an intentional policies to actually make productivity increase, then making trucks is a marker for increase in GDP or increase in productivity in an economy, because that's what manufacturers use to actually deliver those goods to the market. So a lot of goods, as one of our colleagues said, gets spoiled even before they even get to the market. And of course, with energy rising very quickly, we are blessed with CNG. Not many countries are as blessed as us, but now it's chicken before the egg or egg before the chicken, because in order for you to buy a CNG vehicle, you need the CNG to be available to fuel the vehicle. Are you in the energy business or are you in the logistics business? So it really has to be a lot of harmonization in our economy. And maybe that's why conversations like this are good, so that we can, there's still a lot of things missing in the framework to make our productivity better. Thank you.
Thank you, Obi. So, within the space that you're operating in logistics for manufacturing, is it, and this is a side question, is it profitable? I know you wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't profitable at all, but is it worthwhile for other people to think of entry into the space?
And that's why I actually said I'm the school of thought that I want more manufacturers to come up in Nigeria. I found out that obviously Chisco has been doing manufacturer logistics for about 23 years now. So Nigerian breweries, Promasidor, Olam, companies like this. Now all these companies are basically foreign owned. So there are still not many indigenous companies that are actually built out. Obviously, we have the Dangote, but there are not many. There are not many that are mature enough to say that they have a big enough operation for a company like me to go to the bank to say, I want to buy a truck for you. So so we are into manufacturer logistics. We have been, and of course, as I said, it's reducing. Margins are reducing every day. Energy cost is rising. And we are also battling with the right human capital. A driver comes to me today with a driver's license, and I'm pretty sure, there's no confidence I have in that driver's license. Same thing with any trade test from a mechanic today. So I have to start all over again. So I'm now in the training business. So these are the things that are making costs to actually go very high. And for us to still, give services to our clients. So I would say that it can still be profitable, but it's dwindling. It goes without saying, the roads. Some of us are seeing what is going on the roads today. There's some places we basically have no roads available for vehicles to pass through. And of course, it's increasing our maintenance costs by over 25%. So it's harder and harder to actually own assets in the country. And I would say, to be honest, it's the most patriotic thing to do, to actually own assets in the country, whether it's factories or assets that are mobile, because you have to have some level of belief that it will be better, Very true.
Very true. Thank you. Thank you for that. Mr. Umar, I don't know if he's still with us.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Okay, good day. Thank you for making it. So, Dangote Industries is the king in this space. So I'll throw in a wide open question of how have you, if any company has been perceived to do things right, it's been Dangote. How have you navigated as a company these challenges, and what have you found to be the best solution? There was a point where we know that the Dangote Group had a program where drivers could own the trucks, I believe, and I believe that program was then reversed. So what were your findings?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for being invited to this panel. It's a privilege. And the question that you're asking is a very wide question. So I'll try to narrow it down to one or two key things that are still relevant. Obina, the last speaker, spoke about being in the training business, being in the energy business. And as he said, that's exactly what happened to Dangote when it started out. Dangote tried to get third-party transporters to provide that service of logistics. And very quickly, the company found out it was not possible to get enough trucks at the scale they were looking for. So Dangote never wanted to go into that space as a desire. But the realization that without logistics, you're dead. You can produce the product, but if you can't get it to the market, then, you're not able to convert your efforts. And that led the company to invest in trucking. And to date, I think we're very close to the numbers. I had, I think, about 80,000 trucks. But that would be perhaps for those the cement business. The other group of companies also, the companies in the group also have their own different efforts. Many things were tried, including getting graduates to be drivers. Some things worked, some did not. So as any business, basically, is over time you try things, they don't work, you scrap them and you start again. The ones that work, you try to deepen them. That truck ownership scheme was stopped, but then we started another one whereby customers that are, for example, people who buy cement from us, our distributors, were able to send, allow them to also participate in trucking. So that kind of saved the company or reduced the exposure the company has in terms of trucking, because the headache is a lot. Managing just 100 trucks is not really easy because you have all the issues that all the players have spoken to. But the group has kept trying to innovate and to do things differently, one of which is to invest massively in CNG. Even before anybody thought CNG was going to be a lifesaver in terms of cost, trying to also build some infrastructure to be able to refuel along the line. Trying to invest in even truck assembly. We have an assembly plant where we assemble brand new trucks. So all these efforts are geared towards, doing it yourself, because if you look at things in Nigeria, there are very people that scale we have. That is not without challenges. When you look at, for example, you want to keep trucks. You can open an LC and to close that in 18 months or 2 years or 3 years, even cases. Of course, that the cost that you are not sure what will be the eventual cost of these trucks. You look at tires, we don't produce tires in Nigeria. You look at the roads are mostly not good. And of course, that has an attendant. And the way for me, which is the most important part of this conversation, is how do we innovate? How do we improve on the infrastructure? For heavy goods, you have to go back to my previous role when I used to run Ashaka Cement. We invest heavily in rail from Gombe all the way to Kaduna. We invested our own money to be able to move cement to go farther without spending a lot of cost. Because if you look at rail cost compared to road, probably you're looking at a third or 25% of the cost of going by road. So which means basically for you to thrive and compete, the more you're able to use the rail lines, the easier it is for you. Of course, there's the issue of double handling, but if you have the right infrastructure, especially cranes, and you have things like forklifts, and you have warehouses very close to the rail lines, then of course it saves you some cost. So my view is that the focus is what can you do to reduce your costs. One end is the energy cost, which things like CNG, or in some cases even LNG. It's not just CNG, you can use LNG as well. Right now there are kits that people buy and put on their vehicles, and you're able to reduce cost. But then you have full CNG vehicles, which mean that you're going to even be able to reduce your cost further from if you're using a hybrid, probably you're getting only 25% benefit. Whereas if you're using a full CNG truck, you can get 100% benefit. LNG is a bit more complex, but it exists. Today we have people like Greenview in Nigeria who are using LNG to power their trucks, and they're able to go much, much further. These are some of the things I believe that can help. Manufacturing closer to the market where possible. If you look at the gas pipeline network in Nigeria, there's a lot of effort to expand it. There's the AKK pipeline going all the way to the north. So if I have, instead of having one big factory in Lagos and then distributed countrywide, it's an opportunity for companies to have mini factories nearer the demand locations. And that way you're able to save on cost, because more or less the cost of transporting gas is similar. It's not really that different, and you're able to, more or less flatten your cost of production. So these are some of the comments. I would pause here and then probably come back later. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that extensive deep dive into the challenges. And it seems like a uniform challenge here is, not even challenge, observation, is government infrastructure. The state of public infrastructure affects the cost of logistics so significantly that private sector players are now forced to take matters into their own hands, bearing the effect of that decay in infrastructure, or then going into investing, building rail lines. So we're short of time, so I'll go to the next question very quickly. Now, the raw materials that feed our factories come from the rural provinces. The rural provinces, Nigeria's rural economy is very cash-based. I know that a challenge that we have in Zebra is some of the communities where we aggregate and store commodities, they require cash payments. Only cash, they're not going to deal with you. And we have a point where you have these POS agents there who are sitting around with 30 million naira in a village in Benue State. In fact, I got this feedback yesterday in Boko community. And because they know that nobody takes transfer, so you transfer to them, they pull out cash. And this is one facet of a multifaceted challenge about how to ensure traceability, transparency in supply chains. Because if you're having to deploy cash, that's a blind spot, for instance. So how do you digitize that? So the question now comes to digitization. Are there opportunities for digitization, IoT, blockchain? Is it even feasible in this market, considering our realities? Have any of you employed this in your operations? If you have, how? And if you haven't and you struggle with it, why? I'll start with you, Aminu.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it was before we started the aggregation of integration of local farmers. This was one of the main touch points that Sebore as a company had to kind of identify and innovate around. It's important to give context as to what it is. Adamawa State is 5.5 million people. We have 23 local governments. However, there's only banking infrastructure in 3 local government areas. It tells you that there's limited access to formal finance, and that is the reason why a lot of the rural farmers who don't live in local government headquarters but in the interland heavily depend on cash. However, moving that cash and transacting that cash comes with a lot of security concerns, traceability, and the rest. So what we decided to do within our program was to create digital payments network amongst all 18,000 farmers. So the current program is completely cashless. Every farmer within our program has a mobile wallet. For those farmers that did not have BVN or NIN, we registered them. We entered a partnership with E.A.T. We bought them phones. We highlighted to them the benefits of having digital infrastructure, but we also deployed a tactic that made adoption very high, in the sense that the lowest earning farmer currently in our program earns about 187,000 naira a month, which is about 6 times the minimum wage. The highest earning farmer earns around 890,000 naira a month. As such, knowing the potential of their milk, we initially never beg them to go to mobile wallet. What we do is we pay them cash every Friday. Once they receive the first bout of cash, 50K, before our program, I think the average pastoral farmer maybe sees 10,000 naira in 6 months during the dry season, because he's done his harvest during the rainy season, and then he uses that sale from the rainy season to coast the dry season. Access to the dairy program of Sebore has given them access to year-round cash from their milk. So what we do is we tell them about the digital payments infrastructure, but we don't force them to do it. At the initial stages, they want their cash. We give them payment, 50,000. The next week, they get 50,000. The upper week, they get 50,000. Then they come running to us that they can't sleep, that they have the money under their beds, they are seeing shadows at night, and things of that nature. And then we move them over to the mobile infrastructure. And we've been collecting milk now for over 24 months, and we've paid every Friday unfailingly. And that has then given them the confidence to understand the link between digital money and physical money. And I think earlier in the year, you know, they had this cashless policy that derailed the informal economy in quite a significant way. So what we did now is that all 18,000 farmers have Sebore ATM cards now. They now have access to the ATM, and they can now make payments and use sort codes to make their payment. For me, I tell you that I have seen a level of sophistication within rural farmers, is that we need to, government, but private sector mainly from our side. The reason I don't talk about government as much when it relates to my program is what I tell the farmers is, look, Nigeria is in a mess. Our balance sheet is in a mess. Even if the federal government gets a loan, most of it will come to Lagos. Then the balance will go to Abuja. And the remaining, God willing, may reach Port Harcourt and Kano. Before it reaches Adamawa and leaves Yola and goes to Mayobaloa, Fufore, and all the, you go die for that. So you have an asset, which is a cow, that is giving you weekly cash flow. You need to focus, you need to listen, we need to come together as a community to help each other out. And the only way I can help you is that I will create the infrastructure or take the risk of building infrastructure in your local community that can unlock your value. You have to then listen to me and trust that the systems being put in place is for your best use. And I'm telling you, as at today, we believe that if not for the devaluation and some other things, we think we would have been at 50,000 farmers, because we get more and more farmers coming with their cattle. You know, I'm sure in the news when you heard of the new administration saying that cattle should not move around northern states. And you had that young man saying, Abide will come and carry my cattle. What I kind of tell people is, Nigeria has kind of lost sight of what wealth looks like. You would see a young 10-year-old boy maybe moving with 150 cows. And you look at him and say, this boy is poor. Where are his parents? He's not going to school. But the cost of a cow in the market now is 400K minimum. So if he's moving with 100 cows, he's moving with 40 million naira. And you are looking at him as a poor man. And I'm telling you that if the 100 cow are giving him 1 liter of milk a day, then that guy is going to be earning 100K a week. So for us, what I have seen is that there is wealth in Nigeria. Private sector has to kind of unlock it because government has lost sight because of their viewpoint on oil and gas. But in so doing, private sector is the only one that can be nimble enough to look at innovation, be it mobile payment systems, Bitcoin for traceability, IT systems. We are the sector that is nimble enough to be able to implement, try out, test out innovation, and then hopefully, if we have the right leaders in place, can look into it and try and find scale for that kind of thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aminu. Thank you. Obi, same question.
Thank you very much, Obina. I mean, for our business, the beverage business, we're completely cashless because we're dealing with B2B, business-to-business people. Our payment solutions are pretty straightforward, transfers, etc. But I know a little bit about the agriculture and the mining sector, and again, want to echo what Aminu was saying. I think if you're sourcing products from rural areas, from agro-allied areas, you have to use an outgrower approach, assimilate them where it's almost like a symbiotic relationship where you give either these farmers, or I've also done a bit on base metals processing, so sourcing lead, copper, zinc from mainly from the north and from the south, and it's the same situation. I know exactly what you're talking about. You have people sitting on cash. You have to take cash that is very risky. We had to withdraw on the base metals business and stop taking cash to these local mines because they're in very, very risky areas, if you like, and started to look at the value chain and instead started to work with some aggregators that we could work with from an educated point of view, do transfers, and then they then manage the local small-scale miners there. So I think, yeah, you almost have to assimilate these suppliers into groups, cooperatives, or groups of some other sort, basically, where they can aggregate in a formalized way. There's other issues to think about, like quality, because if you're then removed from it, then how do you control the quality of the raw material that you're sourcing as well? To be able to create a system whereby you're getting what you paid for, basically, the quantity you paid for. But again, let me just echo what he said as well. Nigeria is a very blessed country. We're producing a lot of agricultural produce, we're producing a lot of minerals. We, as Nigerians, are actually afraid to go into these deep areas, but I can tell you the Chinese are there. Yeah, the Chinese are in the mineral space. They're driving these trucks themselves. You may know about this, basically. They're driving these trucks themselves, going there, carrying cash, paying, and then they're coming out. Right, so I think we're actually best placed to solve some of our problems, but it is going to take coming together with these rural communities and with perhaps value-added processors like ourselves, basically, to make it happen.
To build a system, right? Thank you very much for that. OB2. Okay. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. I think a lot of things have been spoken already by my colleagues. Well, I'd like to commend even our Nigeria so far. I would say that technology has actually gone quite far into our economy. The telecom sector and the internet penetration in Nigeria, I think over 120 million mobile users right now in the country. So it's actually a lot more than a lot of countries that you would actually see around. We have a very young population that is very creative and energetic. So this is really the right time for innovation. As you said, you were saying, Buffy, you were saying that the Vanderbilt and the men that built America, I would say that yes, it is that time because there's a lot of infrastructure deficits. But fintech has gone very far. Telecoms has actually gone very far. And has helped us a lot. Since 2007, I think that was when Chisco published their first website for people to pay by cashless. We had like maybe 0.5% penetration at that stage, but today, Chisco is completely cashless. So you can only get tickets or pay for way bills through agents, and online as well through omni-channels, whether it's by SMS or cards. So I think that technology has actually gone quite far to actually help cashless transactions, and people have come at least farther to trust the process. And I think we don't go that's rural. So we do a lot of B2B and B2C within cities. So we don't have too much challenge right now being able to convince people to use cash because the channels are actually there. So even if you have cash, there are agents out there that are actually able to collect your cash and we can give the services. But I think we definitely have a lot of opportunities that technology can actually help to boost our productivity. I would say from our own standpoint of transport, I would say telematics has gone quite far for us. Internet of Things. Now that we're able to see our vehicles wherever they are across West Africa, as we have operations spanning to as far as Abidjan, Accra, Benin, and nationwide as well. And we can see our drivers with dash cams. So we're able to see if you're nodding off or if you're using your mobile phone just to improve our safety records. I think to a large extent, the technology, we are ready to embrace technology in our part of the world. I would say that it's still education and human capital that would boost this, because a lot of technology is coming this way. We believe that with the kind of creativity and the young population we have, there should be more solutions coming out of here, because our problems are unique and our businesses are unique, and we should be solving our own problems.
I 100% agree with you. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Umar, if you're still with us, if you can touch on the question.
But I'll take it up a notch and talk about Pan-Africa, because today, like Obi is saying, it's not just about being able to sell goods and services within the shores of Nigeria. There are many, I would say there are many efforts to try and make things easier for people to trade across the border. Afrexim came up with the Pan-Africa Payment and Settlement System, which has started being able to allow people to pay in different, in local currencies, but you're also able to do it, pay in Naira for goods you buy in cities or in SAFA. The reality is that it's going to take some time for it to really work, but so far, so good. There are a few fintech companies that have also gone into that space. I to give the example of Dangote that operates today from Nigeria, we export to a few countries across in West Africa. So how do you get your money back? How do you, when you make dairy products in northern Nigeria, in Adamawa State, for example, I reckon that there's a market for northern Cameroon and Chad and Niger Republic, very close to Adamawa. Or if you make products in wherever it is in Nigeria, there are options, there are opportunities for you to sell your goods across the border. So this is my take in terms of payment. We don't have a problem as such as a business getting payment, because most of the people we deal with are people who are able to make. They are the banked population. And where they sell to the unbanked population, there's a process of POS and the rest that takes care of that space.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that answer. We're out of time, so we'll do a hard stop here for any further questions. Thank you very much to the panelists for all of your insights. You're all doing great, and eventually we will bridge these gaps in our country. Thank you. Thank you.
A round of applause for the first panel. If you joined, as they had already started, what you just witnessed is the local production, sustainable supply chain practices among indigenous producers. Now we're just going to pose for media, take pictures, videos. I'm giving you 15 seconds because we've run out. In fact, we've gone.